and I'm driving home at the same time. And so as I pull into the apartments, this is a few minutes later, probably 10, 15 minutes later after I called, I hear ambulances. And as I'm driving through, I can still remember it really vividly. I start driving into the apartments. I see it on the street coming down the side, ambulances. I open the door to my apartment, and my wife's kneeling over our, at the time, 6-month-old son. She did CPR. And another little, I could probably spend an hour and a half, Doug, just telling more details of the story, but to get the highlights, just a couple months before, she started following some mom on Instagram that taught infant CPR. And so immediately that popped into her mind that, hey, this is what you need to do. So she did CPR, resuscitated him. He began breathing again. And they rushed.
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Bites. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. My guest today, Drew Norton, is the Everyday Sales Leader, a podcast host and co-founder of The Abundant Man. After a family emergency reshaped his perspective, Drew lost 100 pounds and led a sales team to over $20 million in revenue. Today, he helps leaders and teams unlock their potential through his core teachings. Leadership is a choice and sales is life. He believes that to belong is the first step to believe and become, and he challenges high performers to realize that wanting more is the only path that enables you to serve more. Drew is a private pilot, a husband of 13 years, and a father of 4. Drew, welcome to the podcast.
Doug, thank you. I'm excited to be here with you today and also with your listener.
Yeah. And we have the similarity that we have the same amount of children, although with you only being married 13 years, mine are just a little older. Mine my oldest just over a month ago turned 40 and my youngest is 24. I've got 4 sons. How about you?
I've got between 11 and 3, a daughter and 3 little boys.
Okay. And the daughter's the oldest?
Yes. So that's a big help. So...
And I would imagine she tends to mother them a little.
Oh yeah. She, sometimes we have to remind her she's not the mom. And we're very grateful that she came first. She keeps those 3 little boys in line for us. So yeah, she's a big help.
I listened to an ebook about a year ago about, what's it called? Like the birth order. Like the personality traits of the firstborn, the lastborn, and I'm the lastborn, and it just fits me to a T. And yeah, very interesting. And my sister's got 7 children, and she, her last 2 were twin girls, and her second oldest is a girl, so she's the oldest female, and she's just instantly, the oldest daughter started changing all the diapers, and just without being asked, just straight into mother mode. Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Well, so first thing I'd like to talk to you about is, because I had a very smaller version of this, you losing 100 pounds. I got some questions on that. How did you do it? Why did you do it? And how long did it take to lose that weight?
Yeah, so I little context leading up to that. I'm a tall guy. First off, I'm about 6'3". And 6'3", and I probably graduated high school at 155 pounds. So I was skinny, right? And just years of you get married and you start to just get busy with life and everything else and kids and just it was just years of not really paying attention or caring. And I got up at my highest at about 265, and I'm sure we'll explore this in a little bit, but and you alluded to some of it in my intro, but really got into personal development around the time of my son's accident. And at one point I was kind of sick and tired of being overweight. My feet hurt every day. I had really bad plantar fasciitis. So I'd get out of bed in the morning and I could barely walk. I'd go hunting with my brother-in-laws, and we'd be hiking through the hills and I could barely keep up. And where it all actually started on the weight loss was I had a brother who he lost some weight doing the carnivore diet. And I saw my younger brother do that and thought, well, if he could do it, I could do it. and then I kind of liked that idea of the carnivore diet. I love meat, and the thought of like, oh, I can just eat all the meat I want and lose weight. Like that sounds kind of exciting. And so I went on that. And I also, my wife, she's the chef, the baker in our house. I don't love to cook myself. The joke in my family is that I can look at a fridge full of food and starve, because I don't want to put this stuff together to make it. So that was like something simple and easy I could do. So it's like, you know what? I like bacon. I like eggs. I like beef. I like chicken. And so that became a big part of my diet. And, the idea behind carnivore, if your listeners never heard of it before, is you eat until you're full. And for a lot of people, it's once or twice a day, and you feel satiated, and a lot of times you lose the cravings. And so it worked really well for me for a time, because I needed something simple, that I enjoyed. And so that worked really well. Although some of the side effects was I kind of started to have this unhealthy relationship with carbs and different foods, and just felt like I can't eat anything, and felt restricted. And I'd go back and forth between carnivore and keto, and I'd kind of yo-yo. I'd lose 50 pounds, gain 20 back, and I never got back up to the 265, but I'd hover between 25 and 50 pounds of weight loss, and kind of go up and down, up and down. And, part of my own personal development and personal journey was kind of getting clear on who I am. And as I've become to believe different things about myself, it's changed the way I show up and act, and what I do. And I remember when I did some coaching, and worked on some limiting beliefs, I reframed one of my beliefs about myself to, I'm healthy, fit, active, and strong. And what's really interesting, if I go back to that time when I created that belief and started saying that to myself frequently, I've worn a Fitbit for years, but you go back to my step counts, and I pretty much doubled my steps overnight from then on. Became about twice as active. And I think what the key in everything, there's a little bit more to this story, but the key in everything is, instead of having a to-do list for my health, I started to believe that, hey, I'm just somebody who's healthy, and who makes healthy choices and lives a healthy lifestyle. And so that helped me progress and lose even more weight. Eventually I kind of hit another plateau, and that's where I hired a fitness coach, and he helped me lose another, I think I got down to 195 on my own. And then he helped me lose another 30 pounds. I said I wanted to have a 6-pack. And we got that goal. It took about 6 months from the time I started working with him, lost an additional 30 pounds, and was down 100 pounds from my all-time high. I've since added some weight back on purpose. So I'm around 200 pounds now, but it's a lot. If you look at the 200-pound me a year and a half ago, I've got a lot better build than I did at that time. And so, but I would say the key to all of that has been changing the beliefs I have about myself. And it seems like it's so much easier to do things every day when what you do lines up with the beliefs you have about yourself. And that was the biggest key, and not just my weight loss, but so many different areas of my life over the last few years.
Interesting. And the reason I'm sort of so interested in ask is, I'm now 62. When I was 47, I had a bit of an epiphany, because 12 years prior to me turning 47, my oldest brother is 12 years older, and he was 47, and he went away on holidays with his best friend, since they'd been mates since they were 8 years old. They went down to the ski slopes here in Australia in winter, and we minded it, my brother's 2 sons, for the 2 weeks while they went away on holidays. A week in, I get a phone call from my brother saying his best mate, who was a firefighter, my brother's a firefighter, I was a firefighter, his best mate had just had a brain aneurysm at 47.
Oh.
And it took him 6 hours to get a snowplow in to clear the road to get into hospital in, middle of the night. Like, because, it was like a midnight sort of thing. And after like a week or so, they ended up turning off the machine that was keeping him alive. And he was this fit, wiry, super full-on fit, active firefighter. And at the time, me being 12 years younger, I didn't really relate to it. But all of a sudden now I'm 47 and I'm nowhere near as fit as this guy was, who just, my brother's best mate had this brain aneurysm, and I thought, whoa. And so I, just through circumstances, the universe drops things in your lap when you're ready. I read a book and it changed my eating habits extensively, which was basically I stopped eating all processed food as much as humanly possible. And I ate, fresh food, because the carnivore diet to me sounds wild, just eating meat. But it's like, well, if you're throwing eggs and stuff like that in it, like you're not eating processed food. There is some meat out there that I would definitely consider processed, but if you've just got a steak and you're cooking it up, hasn't got a million different things added to it. And the thing that happened for me, I didn't think I was overweight. I thought I'm probably going to lose 3 or 4 pounds here doing this. In 2.5 months without trying, I lost 25 pounds, and I got skinny. I don't think I've ever told my wife this story, but a couple of months after that, we were living on a little tropical island in the middle of the Pacific. I went to Vegas for a scuba dive show, and I'm at the show, and I see people there that I know, and they're not even recognizing me because of the weight I'd lost. I go to the bathroom at the convention center, and I wash my hands. And before there's one of those air dryers, and I go over to the air dryer and I'm sort of flicking my hands and airing my hands, and my wedding ring flies off onto the floor. And at that point, I suddenly realized how much weight I'd lost, for my ring to just suddenly fall off. And as soon as I got to Vegas, the first thing I had to do after checking into the hotel was go straight to the mall and buy new clothes, because my jeans was size 36 and I was now size 32. Like in 2.5 months, I dropped that weight but that's not the story. The story for me was what happened with my mind. I saw the world differently. I saw things clearer. Things were just, my worldview changed. And I'd never thought anything like that was going to happen. I was like, what's going on? And it didn't happen quickly, a minimum of 3 months. What I was tuning into in the universe was different information and things. I saw some things quite differently. So I'm curious, did anything like that happen for you?
Yeah, I think that I love how you said you just saw the world different or saw things different, because I think that was part of it as well. One, it was seeing myself different. So that was a huge part of it. And then two, I think I began to see the world different. And because I'd started losing weight, I recognized it was enjoyable. It was fun. It was kind of exciting. And I started listening and following more people. And there's a lot of, with weight loss especially, there's so much misinformation, or I feel like bad fitness advice, a lot of things to, hey, here's the 3 things to lose your belly fat, like that kind of stuff you seem to see all over social media. And I'm to the point where I track my macronutrients every day. So, and for some people that's more work than they want to do. But I found it's, if you prioritize protein, you cut out processed foods, you lift weights 2 or 3 days a week, just those, maybe actively walk 8 to 10,000 steps a day, get a walk in for about an hour a day. Those 3-4 things can change your life. And yeah, just walking, for example, I've just grown to love going for a walk outside every day, to get out into nature, get out into the world, have some quiet. And so, yeah, I think I've come to view food differently, the world differently, especially when it relates to my health, and I feel better. I feel much better.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I was 19 and joined the fire service, we did shift work. We had some spare time, quite a lot of spare time with working nights. So I joined a gym and for a year or so went to the gym and got fit, but I'm 19, 20 years old. I've really not hardly at all ever gone to the gym since until a year ago because my wife, she had spinal fracture and things like that. And then she got tested for osteoporosis and it was bad. And so all the medical advice, well, not all, but some of the medical advice that she's received was she needs to start lifting very heavy weight. So she now has an exercise physiologist, which is like a step up above a personal trainer, like someone who understands someone who's over 60 with, bone issues, and he safely twice a week puts her through it. So I've started going to the gym as well. And our youngest son, who's 24, is a gym junkie. He's there every day, and he's built like a tank. When he takes his shirt off, his three older brothers all go, "Put your shirt back on, mate." He's chiseled. And so he's got an app, and he's sort of helping old dad, and he's created this fitness app for me on my phone. And every couple of months he adjusts my exercises. So I know I would physically look a lot better if I had a trainer. Because I sort of push myself at the gym, but when you're doing it on your own, it's easy to, not go that extra notch on the weight. But yeah, I've for a year now, I've been lifting heavy weights for me. And I'm deadlifting my body weight, which but I remember when he started, the first day he took me in the gym, he wanted me to do deadlifts. And I started like posturing up and all that. And I just stopped and let the weight. I said, "Mate, I feel like I'm going to break my back." Like, you've got to be kidding. But a few months ago, he came to the gym with me again and he's got me doing deadlifts now. So I'm I'm deadlifting 75 kilos and I do 3 sets of 6. So it's not, extensive. But the funny thing is, the gym I go to right next door to it, like less than half a stone's throw away next door, is a public high school with 2,500 students. So if I get there like anything after 2:30 p.m., half full of high school students, well, 3/4 of them are female. Like, you would think I'm going to a female gym. It's crazy. And it's not even close. There's so many women in there, and I get half embarrassed because there's these petite 20-year-old girls and they're like benching more than I can. And I'm like, but they don't look buff, they just look feminine. And I'm like, where are these muscles? Like, how are you lifting that weight? That they've been going for a lot longer than I have, I guess. I don't know. But I'm thinking back 40 years ago when I went to the gym, it was 3% female and the rest of us were guys, And but it's
that's incredible. My trainer, his name's Ben Lawson. He's an online fitness coach, and he's about my age, maybe a year or two younger than I am. And 5 or 6 years ago, he got cancer, and almost didn't make it during COVID. He probably lost 30, 40 pounds but worked out consistently through the whole thing. And there's not a lot of studies or evidence that show this, that, men his age in his condition, but he believes, if I didn't have that muscle mass I had, I mean, he lost 30, 40 pounds his first couple of weeks in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So that's maybe opened my world a little bit, and just thought, well, I'd like to have a little bit of muscle the rest of my life. And it doesn't take 6-7 days a week, several hours a day. Like, if you get in a few days a week, you can see a lot of progress. So
yeah, I try. My goal is 3 days a week, and the gym I go to has like public swimming pools, 50-meter pools and indoor pools. So when I finish the gym, I go and swim half a kilometre, like 500 meters. So it's not like a big thing, but that's my cardio then. And but that's another story, because I used to have a lot of fears of water, and that was actually why I started going to that centre, was to learn to swim. And they happen to have a gym, so that's been a sideline. But I now actually really enjoy getting out of the shower, wipe myself dry, look in the mirror, and I can see the tone in my upper body, and I'm like, wow, I haven't seen this since I was for 40 years. And it's enjoyable. It makes you feel good. It's like, and if I walk down the street with no shirt on, no one's going to look at me and think I'm not that, but I know the difference. I notice the before and after, just personally.
Well, I've found the gym does two, like it creates confidence in yourself. One, because when you actually stay committed to it, you're doing what you say you'll do. And when you do what you say you do, that creates an inner confidence in yourself. And so for nothing else, it's that. And then two, when you start to see yourself look better, that creates a little more confidence in yourself. So yeah, it's a great medicine, great therapy. Yeah. I'm to the point now where it used to be a chore. It's like, if it's 9 or 10 o'clock at night and I haven't gone, I make sure I still get my gym session in the day, because it's just become important to me. It's just become part of who I am. So
yeah, good. So in the intro, we talked there about a medical emergency with your family. If you'd like to share that story, that we get into there.
Yeah, I'd love to. And in fact, it's interesting. We had this podcast planned for a different day. Today's actually my little boy's 7th birthday. Oh, wow. And this is the little boy that this story is about. So it's it's a little more close today, actually. Yeah. Funny how that lined up like this today. I had so to go back, I had this was about 6.5 years ago. I had just a few months prior changed my profession. I've been in sales for a long time. My background has been in sales. Pretty much my entire career has been in sales. And I made this move because I thought, one, I felt like it was something God was leading me to do. And I remember the moment saying out loud to my wife that I think I ought to quit my job and follow it and go do this. And this sales job was going from a employee to a self-employed sales role. And so in going to do this, it was, okay, well, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to commit to this. I doubled down and invested in myself to make sure I was improving in sales. I'd kind of been in a lot of ruts in my life up to that point. Not that life was terrible, just not working on me at all. And a few months into this new position, we lived a couple hours away, or the where I was working was a couple hours from home. So I had an apartment, and my wife and kids would often come down to stay a day or two at a time while I was working out of town. And I called my wife one day, headed home, and said, "Hey, why don't you get the kids ready, and we'll drive the 2 hours back to our house and spend the next few days at home." And my wife was actually taking a nap, so I'd woken her up when I called her. She almost went back to sleep, and just had the thought, you know what, I need to go up and get the baby up. And she went to get him up, and I'm driving home at the same time. And so as I pull into the apartments, this is a few minutes later, probably 10, 15 minutes later after I called, I hear ambulances. And as I'm driving through, I can still remember it really vividly. I started driving into the apartments. I see it on the street coming down the side, ambulances. I open the door to my apartment, and my wife's kneeling over our, at the time, 6-month-old son. He's barely breathing. My wife's in tears. I could tell something was terribly wrong. My heart dropped into my stomach, and that ambulance I heard was pulling up right behind me, and paramedics, I felt like they ran in behind me and pushed me out of the way to take care of our boy. And what happened in between those few minutes of me coming back, when my wife, when she went to get him up, she found him limp and gray and unresponsive in his pack and play. And she pulled him out. She did CPR. And another little, I could probably spend an hour and a half, Doug, just telling more details of the story, but to get the highlights, just a couple of months before, she started following some mom on Instagram that taught infant CPR. And so immediately that popped into her mind that, hey, this is what you need to do. So she did CPR, resuscitated him. He began breathing again. And they rushed our little boy to the hospital, and my wife jumped in with him. And it was a little, actually very nerve-wracking at first, because the police were called too, and because they were afraid he might die or didn't know what was happening. They wouldn't let me leave our house until we got a clear from the hospital that he was okay. Because if he passed away, it would have turned into a crime scene, and they would have had to investigate. So very stressful, awful, terrible moment. We spent the next couple days in the hospital running lots of tests, and my wife couldn't sleep for the next few weeks. She thought, hey, at any moment, is my son just gonna, if I'm not watching him, will something happen to him? He was misdiagnosed with a heart condition, and that was part of her stress. Is we thought he had a condition called long QT, and that this could happen again at any moment. But the great news was it was a misdiagnosis, and what we believe actually happened now, if we've kind of pieced it all together, he was face down in the pack and play. One of the slats in it was broken, and we knew he had a hernia. He actually was scheduled for surgery a few weeks later for that. We believe he just got he rolled over, got his face caught, and because of the hernia, probably didn't have the strength to lift his head up or roll back over, and was just suffocating to death.
So when you say pack and play, it's like a portable crib.
Yes, sorry, that's probably the brand name of the.
Yeah, right. But just not a term we use in Australia.
Yeah, basically a portable crib.
Yeah,
a small portable crib, and so it was a scary, stressful time for us. We're very grateful he's okay. Once again, his birthday's today. He's 7 years old. You couldn't tell anything ever happened. So we're very blessed, very lucky. But through that, my wife, she had a lot of PTSD. I don't know if that was ever diagnosed. She had counseling, and it was probably 1.5 to 2 years before she felt like she was back to herself. That brought a lot of stress to me. I wasn't as stressed from the event, but my wife wasn't the same after that, and that was difficult and challenging. And you mentioned one of the things I say is sales is life, and also this idea that you have a choice to be a leader. I recognized as that time afterwards, my wife and I, as we talked about what happened and helped navigate the feelings she was having, I realized the things I'd been learning and studying in sales the last 6 months before, I was using to help my wife communicate what she was feeling and process things and get through things. And this isn't, and I don't say that to say, oh, hey, I fixed my wife, because I didn't. And we had better conversations than we'd ever had as a husband and wife up until that point. And I used to think, oh, hey, this happened because I was going to make more money and have more success and follow my dreams. And that did happen. And I believe that was part of it. But I also believe that I wasn't the husband or father my family needed me to be 6 months before. And I think that change and that desire to start working on myself more helped me be a better supportive husband, a better listener, a better communicator as she was navigating, through the challenges and the stress and the trauma she went through of that event. And really believe that moment of, hey, this is the direction to go in my life was to help prepare me and help us be ready and also learn from that event in our life.
Yeah, well, that's quite a story there. And as soon as you said, it was his 7th birthday today, just wave of emotion overcame me. And occasionally I do cry during the podcasts when I'm interviewing people. And I guess something's just come to me on that, because for men, the podcast's targeted at men. And I find intuition is, if we allow emotions to flow, that it can be helpful to things like that. But for men out there who are like, oh, I'm too afraid to show my emotions, a scientific thing that I've heard, and I'm not a scientist, so I can't prove this, is that emotions to me are like a wave in the ocean. They hit you and they don't last for more than 90 seconds. Like if you start bawling and crying over something, fine. But if you're crying 3 minutes later, apparently scientifically, it's your choice. Like the way, so I see like you're standing there waist deep in the ocean and a wave comes and hits you and engulfs you and you're wet, but it goes away. You know, it recedes back out. So it's just, it hits you. So if you are not afraid of your emotions, because you know they're not going to last that long, it's just something hits you. And to me, they open you up to different frequencies, to different messages, to different whatever. And yeah, I certainly, and we talked a couple of weeks ago, and you told me about your son, and you said, oh, he's okay now, he's all fine. And I felt no emotion there at all. But for some reason, when you said it was his birthday today, I was like, I had to mute myself because I was holding my breath, and I think, Doug, and I teach people breathing strategies, and I'm like, start breathing. And so I muted myself so that my heavy breathing didn't come through, composing myself. But yeah, great story, and a forever reminder for you.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point too, Doug, about emotion. I think, and I think this is just what society has taught men, at least growing up. My dad is probably about your age, Doug. I almost never saw any emotion from my dad. I can count on my hand the number of times I ever saw him cry, and it was maybe once at a funeral, saying the prayer at my great grandmother, his grandmother's funeral, and that was maybe the only time I saw. And he was very level as a person. He's a very level man anyway, so never too excited, never too low. And I didn't realize till maybe even just the last couple of years how, if I resist emotion, how it comes back up at other times. And so I've come to realize, like, hey, it's actually okay to feel the emotion and recognize it. And often if you just are aware that you're feeling it, like you said, it goes away pretty quick. And it's funny because I don't know if we talked about this previously or not, but had a few experiences with my 9-year-old boy lately. He's very sensitive to pain. And he's had a couple experiences this year, one with a dentist, one with a chiropractor, that was really painful. And as we kind of talked through what he was feeling, he has learned to say, hey, I'm getting emotional and I'm feeling my emotions are taking control. And if he can admit that, he's able to calm back down and take care of himself. And even had a funny experience the other day where he went to the dentist again and I wasn't there, and it didn't end well. Let's just say that. They weren't able to get done what he needed to have done that day. But what I love is my 9-year-old boy was aware enough to say, I let my emotions get the best of me today. And so there's an awareness to that. And I think for me, at least, not resisting my emotions usually turns into an emotional outburst of anger to my kids or my wife later if I don't take a minute and feel the feelings every once in a while. So
yeah, well, if you look at the word energy, in motion, and a lot of people think, oh, there's good emotions and bad emotions, and I'm fine with people thinking that. But I've started to change my view that they're emotions. They're not good and they're not bad. And it's like, oh, hang on, I really enjoy some of my emotions. Great, enjoy them. And I really hate other ones. Fine, hate them. Doesn't mean they're good. Doesn't mean they're bad, because it's subjective to the individual on what you know. And so, yeah. And the thing is I'm a bit out there. I'm a bit woo-woo. I've studied a lot of things about energy, and I strongly believe it can get stuck in your body. And even though that energy is invisible, it's not something you can tangibly grab hold of or look under a microscope and see. It can get stuck in certain parts of your body if you won't let it flow. You won't express it. And for your son at 9 years old to recognize that his emotions got the better of him or were in control for a short time, and he's fine with that, it's just like, potentially he's got a lot less chance of emotions getting stuck in his body. And if you're thinking, well, what's the consequences of an emotion getting stuck in your body? And I can't prove this because I'm not a medical doctor, but if I said things like arthritis, stuff like that, like people with joints that they can't barely move. And, like I had a conversation yesterday, pre-podcast conversation with a doctor. He's probably in his late 60s now. He's an immunologist. He studied as a psychologist and a psychiatrist. And so he would have people were referring crazy cases to him, doctors, because they were the cases where you couldn't work out what was wrong with the person. So he would just sit and talk to them with using his immunology skills and psychiatry and everything. And he'd say, what was happening in your life around the time these symptoms evolved in your physical body? And he goes, it's just crazy. Like, just all of a sudden he would intuitively understand what was happening with them. And the words he would just pull a couple of words out of what they were describing. And it was like, and when he describes it, you're like, wow, it's just so amazing. The people were holding grief or anger or whatever, and they sound like bad emotions. But, there's just lots of different things happening. And he said some of the people he didn't even treat. He just said to them, well, what do you think about that? That at that time, like 2 years ago, this terrible skin rash that won't go away started, and you say it flares up. Does it flare up? Does anything, make it get worse? And then all of a sudden, they walk out of the room after one visit with him, and he says he checks in on them like 6 months later. He might ring him, and they go, like within weeks of me seeing you, all the rash went away and it hasn't come back. And he hasn't even done hardly anything. He's just helped them realize the two things potentially correlated, that the emotional event that they hung on to. And he's got a huge wide variety of stories, and I'm interviewing him next week for the podcast. And it's just like amazing what the invisible, because I think I said to you weeks ago, my interpretation of intuition is there are invisible benevolent forces out there that love us, and they're trying to constantly be benevolent and help us. Well, to me, energy is an unseen thing as well, and I don't know what it's connected to or anything. But I know for me it's real, because I know when an emotion hits me, it's energy and it's moving. And I know I'm now getting enough sense that I've got to, so I'm muted myself. I've got to breathe. I've got to let it flow. I'm not going to hold my breath and hold that in. And and it's healthy to just let it keep moving and let it go to wherever it wants to go. It's sort of like a surge. Like if you have a surge of electricity, you want to let it keep flowing out. You don't want it to build up in you. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd agree with a lot of that too, Doug. I don't think an emotion is necessarily good or bad either. It just is. And I have a choice that I can resist it or I can feel it. And I've just come to learn over the last few years, if I don't resist it, I'm much happier. I'm much less stressful. I have a choice on the narrative I tell myself about my circumstances. So an event isn't even necessarily good or bad. It's, I could have, with what happened with my son, it could have been the worst thing in our life. And we've chosen to tell ourselves a story that it's one of the best things that ever happened to us, despite it was challenging. It was very difficult for us. And the story we've chosen is, hey, this was to help us. This made us stronger. And so, a lot of that emotion and energy and those kind of things I don't understand or claim to. And I believe there's some truth to all of that. I believe it's real. I believe that exists.
Yeah. And so something else that you've started is, or co-starting, however we want to describe it, is a men's group. Is it called The Abundant Man?
The Abundant Man, yes.
And where's that come from? Like, what was the idea behind that, or the? you know?
Yeah, great question. So a little bit of backstory on it, and I guess for me, the two things I'm really passionate about is helping people see themselves as a leader, and because of my sales background, helping people see that sales is life. Sales, you improve your ability to sell, and it impacts and affects other areas of your life. And I guess part of my mission is helping the me from 5 to 10 years ago. If I look back at my life, I was very unhappy. I wasn't, I was miserable in a lot of ways. And I've, the things I've learned, and the things that have happened to me, and how I've learned from those situations, I want to, if I could go back and give myself the shortcuts, I would. And so, the abundant man, our mission is, we want to, over the next 3 years, impact 10,000 men, and over the next decade, impact millions. And we believe you have abundance when these four areas of your life are whole and incomplete, and that's faith, family, fitness, and finance. My partner in this, he and I, we attended a mastermind around it was kind of a finance mastermind. It was a self-reliance mastermind on personal finances. And out of that, we started a partnership in real estate together, and we own some properties together. And when we went into that class, or into this mastermind, we both were kind of worried. And I don't have a problem with what I'm about to. Dave Ramsey and the debt-free thing, we thought we were going to go in and be beat up about any debt that we have, or feel bad about our finances. That's what we kind of went in thinking. Oh, we hope this isn't what it is. And I don't have any problems with Dave Ramsey. I just know he's kind of the person people think of when they think of, hey, getting your personal finances in order. And what was interesting is, it was a faith-based mastermind group. And we left that just like the overwhelming feeling for both of us is that was a feeling of abundance. And I believe in God, and I believe that God wants to give us all that he has, and he wants to give us more. And it's usually ourselves that get in the way of receiving that. And so our business was Abundant Investments, and that's been the business we've operated our real estate portfolio under. And I went through some big changes personally the last 3 or 4 years, and he did as well. I was kind of on the opposite side. I got to where I was making great money. If I looked at those 4 pillars I talked about, my finances were actually in really good shape. But my faith, my relationships with my family, my fitness weren't where I wanted them to be. And those are the areas I've really worked the most on and improved last few years ago. And Josh, my partner, he was probably the opposite. Everything, those other 3 pillars were great. And he was a religious teacher making $60,000 a year, and just felt like, I'm tired of driving a broken down car every week. And we've both spent a lot of time investing and working on ourselves, and becoming more complete. And as business partners, we've seen that in each other, and just felt like, man, I feel like there's so many men out there that feel like they've got to pick one or the other. It's, I can't make a good living and spend a lot of time with my family, or, I don't have the time to invest in my fitness and spend time, getting closer to God, or whatever my religious beliefs are each day. And we just believe that's not true, and that's a lie. And we want to help people find more abundance in their lives. So we kicked off this group. We announced it end of the year, and kicked it off this month, and it's growing. And we've got some partnerships that we believe it's going to grow very big, very quickly. And we're really excited for it. Really excited to help more men find the area in their life that's lacking, and find abundance.
So is it online or in person, or both? Or?
Both, actually. We'll have a combination of quarterly events, which will be in person. We do weekly calls online, and one-on-one coaching for the men that are in the group. And there's different levels of it. So if someone just wants a little piece of it, we can meet them where they're at, and what they're looking for. And if someone wants a full transformation, we have a lot that they can be involved with and get into. But we're really excited for it, and we've got a lot of momentum right now. And that's where most of my focus is. I still do business coaching. I still do sales training with teams, and that's what my head has been down working on the last month or last couple months, and where my immediate focus is at the moment.
Okay. So do you have a sales job right now, or that you used to do that?
No, I'm not currently, I'm always in sales in the sense that I'm selling myself in my own business. But I'm not doing sales for other companies outside of, like, I have a couple clients that I currently work with their sales teams. So helping them with their sales scripts, helping them with their sales strategy, and, helping them overcome objections and get their sales teams better positioned to succeed.
Yeah. Okay. And the men's group is great because I know, and doing it online and in person, I know I had a guy on the show at least 6 months ago, and he was working with the Rites of Passage Institute doing stuff in person. And then on his own, he'd started like a father's group. And basically you joined the group. As soon as even he said, as soon as you decided you wanted to become a father, before your wife's even pregnant, we've now decided in the coming months we want to, be a family. And he was doing that like once a month with men around a fire, not online, but I think he was getting wonderful results with that, supporting men, because he'd done a lot of work. Nearby to where I am, probably only a 45-minute drive away, there's a Rites of Passage Institute.
Right.
And it was started by a gentleman who's probably in his 60s now, who was an emergency room doctor, surgeon. And he ended up starting it because the demographic where he was getting a ridiculous amount of teenagers into the ER with serious injuries from doing stupid things that, basically were boys attempting a rite of passage by, without them realizing what they were really doing. They were trying to become men. They were trying to create an event that everyone would look at them differently after they'd achieved this physical feat. And often it went wrong and they ended up in the ER, and he would talk to them like, what were you doing? Why were you doing this? Because it was perplexing him that he didn't like the clientele he had. He didn't want all these teenage, mostly boys coming in. So he started studying things up and realized that in other cultures, not a lot of them currently, but in some, and in years gone by, they take their teenage boys at a certain age and stage in their life, and they put them through a serious physical rite of passage that everybody in the community knows when they come out of it days or weeks later, they're different. They have achieved something, a milestone in their life, and they have elevated a notch in a relatively safe, controlled manner that was very challenging for them physically, mentally, emotionally, and they can't come through it. And so he started this thing up, and they put like tens of thousands of people through it. They take, they've now got it, they take fathers and sons, fathers and daughters groups, mother and son groups, mother and daughter groups, they have them all, and they camp out for 3 or 4 days, and they've got a couple of 100 acres. And they do put the kids isolated out in the bush, but they have spotters. The kids don't realize they're there. They're sort of spotters with binoculars, and they got clear line of sight to keep them safe. But the kids aren't told how long they're going to be there and that sort of thing. And the results from it are phenomenal. These kids going through that sort of thing instead of other weird and wonderful things. So, yeah. All right. So I'm curious now, I think I've heard it in podcasts I've listened that you were on, you talking about legacy. Is that something that you'd like to, like having your children and that sort of thing, like for the future, is legacy a thing that big for you?
It is. It's not something I have talked a lot about, other than what I would say about that is I think what I've also a lot of the change in myself in my own life has a big part of it has been for me. And I would say one of the biggest external motivators though are my children. And I want my children to see the things I'm doing and have done and say, "Oh, dad dad wasn't afraid to bet on himself. Dad wasn't afraid to go for a dream or to do something he wanted." Like you mentioned, I got my private pilot's license, and that, for example, was, one day. And when I mentioned traveling quite a bit, I'm not traveling near what I used to, but I was traveling and driving and on the road for hours a day, multiple days a week, and had some friends who had planes, and was speaking to one of them one day, and he made this comment that he owns several businesses around the state, and told me, "Yeah, since I started flying, I've been able to clone myself." And it was like like my mind kind of exploded in the moment, like, wow, that's amazing. And a few days later, and he told me his son was an instructor, and probably 3 or 4 days later, I'm flying in a little Cessna 150, getting my first lesson. And when I asked my wife, she didn't say no. So I just was like, well, you're not saying no, I'm doing it. But as much as it was about, okay, this will save me time and be cool for me. And I think maybe it was my midlife crisis happening a little bit early. And that was part of me doing that. A big part is I just want my kids to see, like, you can do things. I always wanted to fly as a kid. And I think there came a point where reality told me, "Oh, that's not realistic. Like, you're never going to fly." And then when I just heard how I could do it, and I could pay as I go, and the initial cost wasn't near what I thought it would be to get into it, was like, well, why not? I couldn't give myself a good reason not to do it. And so the legacy I would want to leave my kids, I hope to leave them, I'd love to leave some wealth behind. But more importantly, I would love for them to feel like, hey, if I have a dream to do something, I can go chase it. I'll never tell my kids, "Hey, in fact, some might criticize me for this, but I will never tell my kids they can't do a dream they tell me. I might tell them, "Hey, you're going to have to work really hard at that." Right. But I don't want to be the dad that tells my son, "Oh, well, you can't play professional sports someday because the percentages say you won't make it." And if that's what he wants, I'd love to encourage him to go for that, and make sure his identity isn't wrapped up in whether or not he achieves that goal, but that my kids follow what they want, and that if they get there, great. If not, they learn from it. And that's the legacy I want to leave for my children.
Yeah, awesome. And it's amazing when you get yourself around people who've done things and you think, "Oh, they've done that." Like, yeah, because I've got a friend in California, and her parents, father works, in the city, but they have a couple of 100 acres off the grid, and they've got a ridge line on top of this mountain that they've sort of cleared, and that's their airstrip. So they've got a little Cessna, and so dad flies to work. Not every day. He goes and he's got an apartment, but yeah, and then he flies home. Like, he's just in the little Cessna. And then so one of the sons lives on the property as well. So what's he done? He's gone and got his pilot's license, and so he uses the plane too. Like, because it's a long drive. So obviously, like you said, it just it puts you to a different level. It's like, well, it's not so hard to move to this other location that's 200 miles away out on these remote, windy roads. It's like, I can be there in 30 minutes. Like, it's, just like living in town, driving down the street. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, when you expose yourself to people who've done things you haven't done, it's really does open up the things of, they're no different to me. They really aren't. Yeah.
Well, and that's why I say belong, believe, become. Like, when you feel like you belong in a group and you see others in the group doing things, whether it's a close friend, or whether it's my brother that's doing a diet, or the friend who gets me going to the gym with him in the morning, or the friend flying airplanes, or or the friend buying apartment complexes. Like when you start feeling like, hey, I'm just like this guy doing awesome things, it makes you believe I can do it too. And then I feel like when you believe that you can do something, it helps you become something greater. That's part of why we started the Abundant Man, is we feel like, especially in today's world, it's easier to be alone than ever before. Like social media makes you feel like you see your friends frequently, you kind of see them every day, but it's not the same as that, being around the fire, like you were talking about, Doug. And when I feel like I belong, and then when I start believing in myself because I see what others are doing, I feel like I can do anything. I can become unstoppable. So that's why I think that's why I'm constantly looking to be around good, amazing, awesome people.
Yeah. And that is a very much a side benefit of doing the podcast. You get, because I always told my kids, you become what you surround yourself with. And so for me, like I choose who to surround myself with on the podcast. So for those few hours a week, I get to meet people I wouldn't normally get to meet, and always enjoyable people like you. So it's that's a nice little side benefit of life.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to have your contact info and stuff like that if people want to get in touch in the show notes. So apart from that, is there anything that we haven't talked about right now that you would like to very much talk about, or just briefly cover, like what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I most platforms I'm on. So social media is probably the easiest way to connect or learn more about what I'm up to. If you just search for the Everyday Sales Leader or go to the everydaysalesleader.com. If you have any, if you're okay sharing, if your listeners are interested in our group, The Abundant Man, happy to share a link where they can get some information for that. The everydaysalesleader.com/rise up. But outside of that, no, that's what I'm up to. I guess the two things I want to help people with is, once again, men that feel like, hey, there's an area of my life, faith, family, fitness, or finance, that I want to improve and make better. Or it's I love working with sales teams. So if a group's struggling to build their sales team and build the strong culture in their sales team, those are often the businesses I work with. Actually, I've got one last thing I'd like to share, Doug, now that I think about it. What we teach in our group is this idea of identity, purpose, and battle plan. And so that's kind of the framework of our men's group. And I just share this because if you're, what's the end of January, everybody's right now, you're either people are feeling really good about their New Year's resolutions, or they've probably already given up on them. I've gotten to where I actually don't set New Year's resolutions anymore. If I have something I want, let's do it now. So I don't typically, other than reviewing my year, I don't typically sit down and set New Year's resolutions. But I believe the reason most men, when they fail at a goal or a dream for themselves, it's not because they weren't disciplined enough. It's not because the goal was too big or too hard. I really think it's often they don't believe it comes down to what they believe about themselves. And if you don't get clear on your identity, who you are, remove the negative things that surround yourself every day, you'll fall to whatever you believe about yourself. And we, there's some science behind this idea of cognitive dissonance, that you won't act in a way that's different from what you believe. And if you do, you feel very uncomfortable. So a lot of times, this goes back to even the weight loss thing at the very beginning. If I believe I'm overweight and unhealthy and struggle to lose weight, then I can give myself the perfect to-do list and it just be hard and terrible and difficult. And the second I change the way I believe about myself, and it makes it easier to do actions that align with it. And so that's a big part of what we teach. And whether someone joined our group or not, that's what I would say is, what's the stories you tell yourself every day? What are the things you think about yourself? If you want to change your actions, get clear on who you are or change the beliefs about yourself and the purpose, why you're doing things, and then just create a plan and move towards it. It doesn't matter if the plan's perfect. The details matter more, in my opinion, on who you are and what you want and the reasons why than the way to get there. You start taking action, the way gets figured out pretty quick. So that'd be the last thing I'd want to share, I guess, Doug.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. You definitely need to take action, and if it's not perfect, it's fine, because it'll work out. There is no perfect way to do anything, and it can take us a long time to realize that, and get caught up in the details. Excellent. Thank you for your time, Drew. It's been very, very enjoyable. I'm sure those listening have definitely heard a thing or two or three that can help them. And if they come back and listen to this again in a couple of months, 6 months later, I'm sure, like, as we evolve in our lives, we hear different things. We hear what we need. I believe that invisible benevolent force that's out there will prick our ears up at the moment to hear the thing that we need to hear, because we all, experience things differently. So thank you for your time. Excellent.
Thanks, Doug.
Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.